folks. Welcome to Education Matters. Here we are today with Victoria Sullivan, who will be running for state rep. Actually, should be on the ballot, so we'll talk about that. But we'll also talk about, I think Victoria, we're going to talk about food and school food service and how your kids like their lunch, or don't like their lunch, and how, folks at home, if there's mothers who'd like to join us on the show sometime, you just give us a call. The number that's usually on the screen. Just give me a call, and you're welcome to come on and talk about things that you'd like to talk about with what's going on in the schools, or if you're homeschooling. I know we may have a mother on who's homeschooling through VLAX, and she'll come on and tell us all about how that's working out for her and her son. So, well, Victoria, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And, well, I think we're going to start with food, right?
Right. So, I don't know how many people are aware of the fact that your principal is in charge of the food in your school. They are allowed, through the federal government, they're allowed 3 events per month. And that would be the popcorn sales, the bake sales, and the kids' celebrations. So they're now reduced to 3 events a month, and those are each considered an event. In our school, as these guidelines were coming down, we re-examined how we were doing popcorn, because we like to do that. For the kids, they really enjoy it. And we changed from what I call the sludge that they use. It's this big, thick, orange, not a color out of nature.
Artificial popcorn oil.
Oil. It's called an oil, but it doesn't even move like an oil. I mean, it's more like Crisco. It's very sludgy. So I had a conversation with the people that we get our popcorn supplies from, and we opted to use canola oil, which is, an actually fluid oil. And we use real cheddar cheese. We don't use the artificially processed. It's cheddar and skim milk and whey. And that's what we use. So we've made our popcorn more healthy, so hopefully we're complying with these standards better. Then the bake sale once a month is a fundraiser for our school, and we use that money to go towards field trips for kids that otherwise couldn't afford to go on their own. So that's an important element. These things aren't just for fun sometimes. The bake sale, the popcorn sales, those go back to the kids. And I, personally, I don't have a problem with bake sales. When I was in school, you and I had spoken, when I was in school and I had hot lunch, we had a pudding or Jell-O or a brownie or a cookie, and those cookies were big cookies, every single day at lunch.
What's wrong with a peanut butter cookie or an oatmeal cookie?
There's not, you know what? They make you happy. Sometimes they just fill the belly of a picky child, and filling their belly sometimes is more important.
And it brings oxygen to the brain for those kids who have low sugar that day.
That's right. And by that time...
Sugar crash.
And that's a good point, too, because in school, you should eat every couple of hours to keep your metabolism up and your sugars level. In school, they go long periods of time without eating. So sometimes they're already crashing by the time they get to lunch. But, when we were in school, we had these treats every single day. And I know that you can count on one hand the chubby kids in your school. Like, I know I can. But we walked to and from school, 4 miles uphill both ways in snow. But no, we walked to and from school. Only the rich kids had shoes. But we did walk to and from school. And then when we got home, we were outside. We were outside until our parents pulled us in. We did not sit in front of televisions. We didn't play video games. And we snuck. Now I'm really going to date myself because my brother had Atari. And we would sneak in Atari games every now and then. But we were outside. And my parents would call to make sure, both my parents worked. So they would call to make sure, hey, get your homework done and get outside.
Yeah, till the street lights went on.
That was it. We didn't like to be inside.
No.
It wasn't, we didn't want to be home watching TV. That was, special, those rainy days and Sunday nights with the Disney movies when they were on.
And we'd be right out front of the house. We'd be playing, kickball or playing baseball in the field or,
right.
Or something, or hide and seek, as
right.
it was just getting dark.
But these limitations that they're handing down to the schools, which it's not their place to be handing these guidelines down to the schools. And they're putting the principals, who have enough on their plate, no pun intended, to be in charge of making sure that each classroom is complying with this. The whole thing is just, it's so controlling, and it doesn't...
It's a one-size-fits-all. And we know that we're not one size fits all.
No, and it doesn't solve any of the problems that are actually causing obesity with kids
No,
in our society.
what are they eating at home? There's no
Right.
food police there yet.
And when we were kids, we now live in a much different society. We had sports only on Saturdays. I think we had, through the church, we had basketball 1 or 2 days a week. But we weren't scheduled out like we are now. Families weren't as busy as they are, and we didn't drive out. The drive-through, the town that I lived in, we didn't even have a drive-through. And you ate out only occasionally because it was expensive to eat out, So most people still cooked. They cooked at home, and you didn't drive through McDonald's 2 or 3 times a week. So it's the habits that we've created in our homes that are contributing to obesity. The kids not being outside to play, having way too much screen time, and us being lazy as parents and driving through, and McDonald's is an easier fix than trying to figure out how to pack a sandwich to get to the ball field. But this kind of control that the federal government is now handing down to our schools it's overreach, and it's not fair to put on the principals either.
Did they increase the serving size for the high school, do you know? I know your kids aren't in high school yet, but
No,
the
mine
kids
are-
were starving.
They were starving, and I know around the country they have. I don't know if they have here. To be honest with you, I don't allow my children to take school lunch because I called and they will not give me the ingredients that are in the lunch. Now, I'm one of those shoppers that I'm in the grocery store, and it's not that my
High
kids don't
fructose
have the
corn.
occasional, they love Cheez-Its, and there are things that I do give in on.
But like all this high fructose corn
Exactly.
syrup.
My kids know
Yeah.
that if that is one ingredient that we really look for, because it's in everything.
Yeah, it is.
And even if you had it in moderation, I'm not sure that it's something you should really have in your body. But it's almost impossible if you don't read
right.
to have it in moderation, because it really is in everything, from your breads and your cereals to try to find a popsicle that doesn't have it. And cough syrups, it's really in everything. And this has been linked to different cancers in children. It's been linked to obesity. It's been because of fat storage. Your body just can't break it down.
So they won't tell you the ingredients?
No, and I'd rather my kids had sugar than high fructose corn syrup or artificial sugars or artificial, the sweeteners that take the calories out but put the chemicals in.
Right.
I don't like that. I called downtown. I tried to get a list of ingredients. They said they have the labels down there in a file cabinet, and I can go down and look at the ingredient labels if I want to, but they're not. So if you have chicken nuggets and something on the menu, they're not going to tell you this is what's in that lunch item for the day. This is this is nutritional content for the lunch for that day. And I think parents should have that information. They should know what they're feeding their children. I can now get that at McDonald's, but I can't get that at my kid's school. My kids only take lunch when there's delivery pizza, which I really wish the district would work on getting that contract, because that saves me one Friday a month where I don't have to pack a lunch. Think about what to pack for lunch. But they're still out of contract with that, so the kids haven't had that treat yet this year. But that's the one time my kids take lunch. They've actually, then we go to the breakfast. The breakfast that's passed down from the federal government guidelines. So when you have
Dry cereal.
breakfast,
Why can't they make a hot oatmeal or,
right? It's not. It's in a brown bag. So this one says breakfast wheat bun, which is every kid's going to eat that for breakfast, right? A breakfast wheat bun. I don't even know what that is. Cereal, fresh fruit and milk. So the cereal tends to be Fruit Loops,
Cocoa Puffs.
Cocoa Puffs, the things that you would steer your children away from. They're giving that to them every single morning and then coming back and saying, wait, you can't have bake sale, popcorn, you
Right.
can't have those things. I would rather my child had a homemade cookie than have that. I would. But let us decide. If, I'm perfectly capable of saying to my child, you know what, I don't want you to do bake sale this month. I don't want you to get anything because we have a party this weekend and you're going to indulge then. Or, you don't need to get popcorn every week. Let parents start making those choices. These aren't for the federal government to come down and mandate and then tell the principals this is now part of your job. These principals have enough to do.
Amazing.
It really is. And another parent went on to that, and we were talking about this on Facebook, and she wrote down the list of the artificial sweeteners that are allowed in this program.
Oh, really?
And it was, she was actually, you could tell by her tone, she was actually very angry about it. So it was just a whole list of artificial sweeteners that they consider to be healthy to have in these things. And they're not telling parents, like, you have to do the research to find out what's in it. It's not readily available. So as you said, I'm running for state rep, and one of my goals, if I get in, would be to have school districts, to pass a law that actually makes school districts do nutritional menus. These are done in other cities. Bedford does it. I talked to a parent in Bedford, and they said when they get their lunch list like that, beside it will be the nutritional content of things and the ingredient list. Now, with all the food allergies that we have in schools now, why is there not an ingredient list for every single menu item that they have?
Right, because parents, I mean, just because you get a doctor's note saying you have a peanut allergy.
Right.
Now, what is that? It goes to the dietitian, and then the dietitian makes that child his special menu?
Right.
Is that what happens?
But sometimes there's whey or milk in some of these items that you wouldn't think about. Like you wouldn't, same with the high fructose corn syrup. You wouldn't think of that in being in some of the items that it's in. Same thing with milk or whey. You wouldn't think of it being in some of the items that it's in, you know?
Or maybe just parents want a choice. Maybe they don't have a doctor's note.
Right.
Because it's not something that the doctor says, you know, they'll die if they eat a peanut or eat or whatever, or have some milk. Or,
Don't these issues always come back
but
to
parents
parental
have
choice?
preferences. Yeah, the choice of parents, some, you know, dairy-free, some parents just, or gluten-free.
Right.
It's not the doctors that are putting them on the special diet.
It's just their preference.
Yeah, they just don't, they want to do that. Or the mother's the cook in the house.
Right.
And
Usually.
she's going to decide what the kids eat, right?
Right.
So if she wants gluten-free, guess what? The kids are going to eat gluten-free.
Right.
So
But-
whatever.
And this comes back down to the federal overreach and parents' choices being taken away. And they're not giving the parents the information to make the choices.
Right.
And, you know, this seems to be where we keep falling into line.
You mentioned Windham.
Yeah.
They did away with the
I read an
federal-
article that said they were, I don't know if they already have, but I did read an article saying they were going to do away with
the federal
the
funds.
federal funds for the lunches.
So they're not under the mandate.
No, and there were two other schools that I read about recently. I think it's from that article that I saw on Facebook that are asking for waivers to get away from this. Now, the fact that you have to ask your federal government for waivers to get out from underneath their grasp in a local school is crazy. There are so many strings attached to federal money, and we really need to remember that when we take any of it. Because, yes, we want the children who can't afford lunch to have it. But why do all the other children have all these strings attached? I mean, if you're a child who's buying your own lunch, the government is not helping you, taxpayers aren't helping you, your parents gave you money to buy a lunch, and you now go into school and you want your pizza. That pizza comes with a vegetable and a fruit. If you don't take those, they will not give you your pizza.
The fruit and the vegetable?
Yes, and I know that sounds extreme, but it's the truth because it happened to both of my children.
I know the mayor was talking about that, and he says, you know, they shouldn't have to be forced to take something that they're not going to eat. They're going to throw it away.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they can take that food that's left over, put it on the table, and kids can go home with it.
Right.
You know, the extra
And in one
apples.
case, it was, they don't tell you, sometimes they'll just say like choice of fruit or whatever. So in one instance, my child had brought broccoli already, and that was what was also being served is broccoli. My kids will also only eat raw broccoli. They do not like cooked broccoli. They won't touch it. So they should be able to have that choice. I don't want them force-fed things. You know, we don't do that in our house. You know, I want you to try different vegetables. I'm not going to force you to eat something you don't like. Then you're never going to like it.
Right.
You know?
Or their palate is just not ready for it yet. And as
Right.
they develop, you know, they get better. I know although my daughter, she still doesn't eat celery.
My
And
husband's
she's
like
30.
that. That's such a strange thing because my
Won't
husband's
eat
like
celery.
that.
I used to disguise it and chop it up as finely as I could and put it in a veggie burger. And if you want to know my veggie burger recipes, give me a call.
I do want that. But they actually were told they couldn't have they were withholding their lunch until they took the fruit or vegetable. And as a parent, I was really upset because I'm paying for this. And if they're able to make a choice at their lunch, and if they don't want it, they shouldn't have to have it. And I actually went to the school and they said, we have to do it. It's mandated, we have to do it. Again, it's just the federal government overreaching into personal choices and
I
decisions.
just think that if it's on their plate, they may eat it when they get to the
So
table.
let me tell you a funny story about this. And my son still likes to tell the story. A couple years ago when they first rolled this out, They thought it would be a good idea to give the kids cranberries the day before Thanksgiving. They gave them raw cranberries. The children thought they were being poisoned because they looked like the berries their parents had told them not to eat off the trees. But they learned very quickly, especially the boys, that they're great projectiles. So, we only use raw cranberries for stringing in our house.
Rolling on the floor.
They were everywhere. Those sporks can make a cranberry fly. But, that was another ingenious idea from the federal government. So, the federal government has its place, and it needs to know it. It needs to stay in its place and sort of leave us alone. The other thing with this is, what they basically do is they take junk and they wrap it in whole grain, and they call it good for the kids. There's some evidence to say that too much whole grain is actually detrimental to their health, because whole grain pulls fat out of your body. But with that, it also pulls the fat-soluble vitamins out of your body, like D,
like
E, A.
The bun for breakfast.
Yeah,
and
it's
then,
everywhere.
And then there's so much bread. Then there's a burger on a WG bun. What's a WG?
Whole grain.
Whole grain. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So they got the bun.
Whole grain nuggets, whole grain chicken, whole grain cheese
or
sticks.
Turkey on a whole grain coney.
Yeah.
And a coney is another bun.
Yeah.
And it's like all this bread.
This is creating the carb addiction in the kids. Everything, it's not balanced.
A dinner roll, chicken tenders with a dinner roll.
And the dinner roll for breakfast.
The dinner roll? Yeah, it's like all
the breakfast roll.
The wheat bun and the cereal and the dinner. What's our food pyramid anyway? Is it? I was looking at the Mediterranean food pyramid.
And that is the one that most doctors agree with.
Yeah.
The healthy fats, little
meat.
It is a little meat.
Lots of vegetables, lots of greens.
And in all cases, refined sugar in moderation. It's a treat.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's just carbohydrates are sugars. That's what they are. So it doesn't matter if it's whole grain or if it's a cookie, your body's going to use it the same way. So all they're doing is they're giving these kids huge amounts of carbohydrates and sugars under the guise of healthy food, while they're at the same time saying no popcorn, no bake sale, no parties. It doesn't make any sense.
No. And you were saying that it's not that appealing, not appetizing. Some of the, like the oranges you said were in a package.
No, they
it's all this prepackaged. It's not a fresh orange.
Right. And they do occasionally have a whole fruit. But a lot of the fruit they're given for their new healthy snack that they get every day, every kid gets it. Taxpayers pay for these healthy snacks to go to every school in the district. They're in a prepackaged thing. I think they're all by Dole, as a matter of fact. So they're grapes that are sometimes look like they've been through the ringer before they make it to the kids, and oranges that are pre-cut and in the thing kind of dried out, and occasionally they get a good package of green beans or something that they like, but they're often not very good quality of food, and it's just a waste because they throw them out. I do drama club at my kids' school, and we'll often get whatever's left at the end of the day gets sent down to drama club for the kids because there's so much left. The kids aren't eating it. I don't like every fruit. I don't like every vegetable. I wouldn't like it forced upon me. That would make me not want to eat it more.
I know the mayor, he said he wanted the kids to be able to take from the table, like take the extra oranges or the extra apples and take them home. Or I guess there were guidelines against, you can't recycle the food, but if they have leftovers that have not been divided to the kids, then they should be able to.
But don't we recycle the food when we get it from the grocery store? How many hands have touched that apple before you get it to your house? That's why you wash your fruit.
Right.
So as long as they take it and wash it, what's the big deal? The nurse at our school will take the fruit and she washes it before she sends it down to the drama club to use. If it's a whole apple or a whole pear or something like that, the Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's got to be a way to not throw so much food away. I guess we're still too wealthy of a country. We throw so much away.
But we're not, because the government has no money of its own. The government does not have any way to produce anything that they can sell to make money. They take your money, they take my money, then they decide they're going to do this food program. They're going to give kids food that they don't like, so it gets thrown in the trash, and we're paying for that.
Right.
And then even though I'm paying for it, my kids can't say, I don't want it. We're so out of balance as a country right now.
Or we're just racking up debt, because if we don't have the cash that comes in from our taxes,
Right.
then they just bond it, and they did, from the Federal Reserve, and that's another thing. You just debt.
And recently, the city they voted against it, but it was very close. They were looking at the federal program for food that would allow every kid in the city to be on the free food program. Every child.
Yes, that's right. I heard that.
So even though I can afford to pay for it, microphone. Even though I can afford to pay for it, my children would be on the free lunch program.
That's not right.
No, it isn't right for a lot of reasons, but we're setting them up for socialism so young in this country, and to say, hey, you don't have to work for what you want. It's just coming to you free.
It somehow comes to you, right?
Right? And
that's
like I said, it's okay for the kids that need it. No one wants to see a child go hungry. And there are parents that are struggling that need that help, and that's okay.
I often thought about, students or families who are on Medicaid, or they have food stamps, but yet they have free lunch, and they get the food stamps for those. So how much food stamps are they getting anyway? Is this a double portion?
Right.
Because the kids are eating at school, so the parents aren't making them a lunch.
Right.
So are they getting?
Well,
are they getting 3 meals a day for each person in the household?
In the argument for the free lunch for the entire city, the mayor said, he made a comment like, wouldn't it be great if Mrs. Jones didn't have to make a peanut butter sandwich for little Johnny? And I thought, that's her job. It's your responsibility to take care of your own children. It is not the city's responsibility to take care of you, nor is it their place to step in to tell you how. Right. Because once you start giving up your rights, as you see, it's hard to get them back. And I think that we're in a place now where we have relied so heavily on the schools to provide for our children and help us raise our children, that now parents are starting to say, wait a minute, what happened? Where are we? But we've given over that control. Some of these kids are eating breakfast at school, they're eating lunch at school, and they're at school until 5:30 at night. They're at school more than they're in their homes.
Well, you'll be going up to the State House, hopefully.
I hope so.
And you'll be seeing all of this funding for welfare, and seeing, okay, are we paying taxes, either the federal taxes or the state, state taxes one way or another.
Well, we have the Medicaid expansion that just went through as well.
The Medicaid expansion, there's just money flowing to these families.
Right.
And how much are they actually getting, and how much are they actually using?
Well, that Medicaid expansion is for healthy adults between the ages of 18 and 64. We're not talking about the people in need any longer. Now we're talking about healthy adults between these ages. And a lot of people made the argument that, okay, you're looking at people that make money under the table, make money on tips. A lot of these people have an income that's higher than what they show, and now they're going to be available for the Medicaid expansion, which nobody really knows how that's going to get paid for. And there is some speculation that this is what is going to push us into a statewide income tax.
Sales tax
to pay for it. So that needs to be abruptly stopped. Right. I don't know how that even got voted in, because
I think that it was a promise that the federal government would pay for it for like 2 or 3 years.
They're so good at keeping their promises, aren't we now?
Like special ed.
We have a 23% gas tax increase recently to finish these projects, and right after that went through, the federal government came back and said they were halting financing for these road projects, and I'm not sure where that stands right now, but they weren't going to pay their share.
Smoking mirrors in the budget.
That's right.
And I just hope and pray, Victoria, that you will get up there, get elected. We need to vote for Victoria, Ward 9 in Manchester. Please vote Victoria to represent us in Concord, and because she's quick on the details, and we need somebody there with the details.
Thank you.
And I appreciate. So when you're out in the campaign trail, we have a couple minutes here out in the campaign trail. What are people telling you? What do they want?
They want control. They really do. Between, the borders, which isn't anything I'm going to be able to do on the state level, but who you vote for to go to Washington is going to be very important too. We've got we've got Frank Ginta that could go in there, Marylinda Garcia. We need people that are going to tighten up the borders for this country. And on the state level, we need people that are going to be watchdogs to make sure that that doesn't trickle down into our state too. And we have federal overreach in our government between Common Core state standards, and we discussed the food today. There's so much happening that we really need people in the State House that can go back to the roots of what our founding fathers had intended as sovereignty for each state, and we need to regain control of our state.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can make another committee or something, a little coalition of parents, just to talk about how we want our kids to eat in the public schools. And maybe we don't like what's going on, and you feel powerless. Well, give Victoria a call, and if she can do something maybe at the state level where we can stop this federal money coming in, but yet maybe, somehow figure out a way to get the kids to eat that need to eat, and we have decent food and not this federal surplus food.
So we have a farm-to-table program through the PTA. And we have so many great farms in New Hampshire that we should be working with locally to put local food on our kids' plates. We have, culinary school right here in the city at MSD, and we should be working with them to figure something out within our community. We need to get back to the community and resolving these situations here.
That sounds great, Victoria. Well, I think we have a couple minutes left, and ish, he says. We're watching the clock. Yeah. So anyway, the principals are doing their job, supposedly, of policing the food.
Poor things.
And
it's really a lot of work for them, and I really wish this wasn't their burden. Because I know they get it from the parents as well, coming forward and saying, what's going on, why are you restricting things? And it's
and if there's no evidence that it's working, and that the obesity is going up instead of down, then obviously the school lunch program is not having an effect.
No.
Positive an effect. And we didn't even get into the suppers, because I guess they're giving the kids supper now. But,
oh, God.
And feeding the whole family. I don't know. I mean, where's it going?
Where's it end?
Where's it end? We may have just put cots in the gymnasium and let them sleep there overnight, and we call it an orphanage, right? Basically, isn't it? I hate to say that, but isn't that where
that's where it's headed?
They won't have to get up in the morning, right? They'll just be there already.
Mrs. Jones won't have to make little Johnny that sandwich.
Yeah. Anyway, I know we're kind of looking for something here. Yeah, we don't want to get into something too heavy, but I know there were the testing. You were concerned about the testing. There's too much testing. And we heard one of the teachers at the school board meeting last night. Today's the 15th. The 14th, the school board, the teachers were talking about too much testing. They had, how many weeks? 13 or 15 weeks of testing out of 17 weeks?
Well, their first district assessment test came out, and across the city, children were complaining because we have a Facebook page set up for parents and are against Common Core. And the first district test that came out, the kids had no idea of anything that was on that paper. And that's not an assessment test. That's just making children feel frustrated and angry and upset. And it leads to them really not testing well on anything.
They're getting, after all these weeks, they're just saying, the heck with that.
You're being flagged.
All righty. Are we done? Okay, we're done. So thank you, Victoria, for joining me this week.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time in a month from now. Give us another update.
Hopefully in a month from now,
Okay,
I will be,
You'll be
I'll be
an elected
on my way to the
rep.
State House.
All right, thank you so much. Take care next week, folks.